Pleased to be here for this very important workshop on public-private partnerships and how they relate to the topic of resiliency. For me, this is a topic that is sort of always on my mind. If you live in New York or if you've ever been to New York, you know it's a kind of a crazy place to begin with. But if you look at the last 10 years of what's happened in the city, you can go back to 9/11. We're going to be dealing with our 12th anniversary of that event. I happened to be in the World Trade Center that day and dealt with the aftermath of that event. If you look at things like the U.S. Air Miracle on the Hudson event and then most recently Sandy, those three examples I think are things of where public-private partnerships really came into focus. When you think about the fact that almost 800,000 people were evacuated from lower Manhattan on the day of 9/11, done by basically a civilian force of people that seemingly just sort of came together. That was an organization that had been put in place years before. If you think about the crash on the Hudson River, the fact that boats responded to quickly and knew what to do with that airplane didn't just happen. That was because people had thought about that scenario, planned for it, exercised for it, and when it happened, they were ready to go. And then finally, Sandy, which in my experience was probably the most challenging event that I've ever had to deal with from a crisis standpoint. A storm 1,000 miles wide that affected a huge region of people, infrastructure that was very vulnerable to flooding. We had a 13.5-foot storm surge, which basically put about 4 feet of water on everything in the port. The idea that at least in the port, there were no deaths or serious injuries. There was no looting. There was no loss of goods during that period of time. The fact that we were able to come together as a community, both the private industry as well as the public agencies, do what needed to be done to assess the damage, bring the port back up very quickly, and within less than a week, back into operation, to me, having been involved in these things in the past, was nothing short of a miracle. So from my standpoint, living in a world where we're constantly thinking about what's the next threat, I think we clearly believe that you need to know the people you're going to deal with before the event, not afterwards. You need to continue to communicate with each other. You need to develop that trust. When you're into an event, you need to understand what everyone else around you is going to do, and I think we've got that trust built. And then finally, you can't plan for the event that just happened. Sandy was an event. It may happen again, but the next event may not look anything like Sandy. And so the concept of resiliency has to be a much broader concept. And I think from our perspective, that's really what the challenge is here today.